But what she saw was a 300 score on the LDL, and she lost it.
Paul, how did you find carnivore?
Dave, yes, I'm gonna go back to about 2011. I was in Kuwait. I had been in the Middle East working for the US Army as a contractor. I had a background in sports and fitness. And so at that point, I was in Kuwait working on an army base, helping my supervisor devise like strength and fitness training, functional fitness type stuff for soldiers. Like they didn't want bodybuilding. So during that, I was studying all the proper lifts and the ways to, try to get better strength. Basically, it was like powerlifting training, things like that. Um, and I needed to be able to do it myself. So I was keeping myself fit. And one of the things that you come across is what kind of diet are we going to do? A bodybuilding diet? Like that's not really something that works for soldiers going to the cafeteria, right? So I was trying to look for diets that would work. Now my supervisor was a professional bodybuilder in the past, so he knew that, but we both knew that wasn't the right way to go. So we ran across the paleo diet stuff. Back then that was being talked about quite a bit. And so I got into the paleo diet thing. I tried it myself. It seemed to be working. Of course, I was at the gym, like working out basically almost every day, but cutting out the breads and all the things the paleo diet talks about is getting rid of all those processed foods, right? So I actually did see results for myself back then. So I put some soldiers on it, especially one in particular. He was a young man who was tall, but quite heavy set for a soldier, and he was getting himself in trouble. He couldn't raise in rank because he couldn't pass. He had the body. Oh, I'm forgetting the name of it, but his neck was too big for his waist and all that. So they weren't allowing him to raise in rank, and he was really in trouble. So I said, let's try this paleo thing, and I'll put you through the workouts. I'll even be your own trainer. So I got him started on that, and I basically told him, when he goes inside the dining facility, they always have the salad bar, they always have meats. Stay away from all the Pop Tarts and the bread and the donuts because they have those too, and the cereals for the soldiers, which is crazy, but they do. And I just told him that's it. Get your meats, get your salads, eat fruits for snacks. Don't eat Pop Tarts. And, we're talking about a guy in his early 20s, right? So, anyway, he got transferred into another base and he left. He actually went into Iraq for a while. And I remember it had been about 4 to 6 months. And I remember this guy really well because he came back and he wanted to walk in and thank me. And I had no idea who he was. He had lost so much weight and he looked fantastic, but he was going on military base gyms and working out very hard. He was running and he was only eating like oranges for a snack and he was eating lots of meat and vegetables. He looked great. So I thought, well, this paleo thing really works. But that's why I mentioned he worked out very hard too. But it was great for him. And I saw results from that and it was nice. Anyway, I injured myself during that period. I was getting towards, 40ish and still trying to lift weights and show these guys how to lift weights. And I actually created a umbilical hernia and it was really bad. It was like a big golf ball on my. So I went in for a surgery. Well, Dave, that was the end of the weight training, the paleo, all that stuff, because all of a sudden I was hurt. I couldn't do my job. And I decided I wouldn't be able to lift for a while. And back then my mind wasn't very straight on things. And so if I wasn't lifting, I didn't need to diet. So I went back to an old trade I used to do, which was truck driving. And those contracts ended. I went back to the States in 2013. And in 2013, I was just a truck driver. and I was eating whatever. I was back on the old American standard diet. And going forward, I think I'm trying to remember well. I believe it was around 2017 into 2018. I noticed I'd put on a lot of weight, and I wasn't happy about it because I used to be a fit trainer type guy. So I said, okay, this something's wrong. So I started searching around on the internet, like, let me go back and read some more about that paleo stuff, right? And I ran across, guess who? Dr. Barry. Sure did. This is back when he was just, the keto guy. And keto to me, it sounded like paleo. It was all about no processed foods. But what I didn't really grasp back then, because I thought, well, I'll just get back on that type of diet. But I wasn't catching the clue about you actually have to count your macros, right? The carbs have to be counted if you're going to be in ketosis. So it kind of worked for me, but again, I was living in a truck, so it was interesting. So going forward on that, I was doing better. Things were going well. I was starting to lose a little bit of weight, and I was starting to feel pretty good. But I kept watching Dr. Barry stuff, and I can't remember if it came to maybe 2019, and he started talking about carnivore. Yeah, he started going forward with the carnivore, and that sounded pretty good. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Now I don't have to worry about counting anything, and I don't, who cares about vegetables if you don't need to eat them? But I thought I'd give it a try. And I started, and I think within 2 weeks, it seemed okay. But all of a sudden, I had my first ever horrific gout attack. Left foot, toe joint inflamed, red, and I couldn't walk. And I had a truck back then that had a clutch. Your left foot's supposed to operate the clutch. I could hardly even do that. It was horrific. It made life so bad. I could barely drive. I had to stop for a while, and I went to the doctor, told him I'd been on the carnivore diet. He said, "What do you mean?" And I said, just eating a lot of meat. Well, that's where your gout's coming from, right? So I literally got kind of depressed about the whole situation because I thought the diet was the right way. It felt good for the week or two I was on it. Then I had that terrible gout, and they're telling me the red meat caused that. It's and I just that was it. All of a sudden, I fell off the diet. I went to the doctor. He gave me the allopurinol pills. He, said you can't do it, and not blaming her, but I had my wife with me. She's from the Philippines, and there's this thing called rice, right? So she's telling me, just let me cook for you. Don't worry about it, and all this kind of stuff. I just started eating whatever she made. And anyway, so we can go forward from there. That was 2019, 2020. So basically, I had just ate whatever I wanted and stopped looking in the mirror and didn't even realize what was happening until I started feeling bad physically. Something was wrong. And I had gotten very fat and swollen, but I was trying to ignore it. But then I started feeling sick and I had to go to the emergency room. And they gave me metformin and told me, you are diabetic. You have, your blood sugar shot through the roof. You have high blood pressure, which I'd never had before. And I was like, really? Here I was, like in those pictures, so bloated, so fat, but I was still in such denial, because gee whiz, I used to work out. Anyway, that's when the wake up call came. And the metformin, they told me I had to go fill that. And I had listened to Dr. Barry before about keto and how it actually stopped people from being type 2 diabetic. And so I didn't fill that prescription, to be honest, because when I was there at the hospital, they gave me that prescription. And I looked at the guy and I said, listen, it was a male nurse. And I said, what if I just stopped eating sugar? Do I have to take this drug? And he said, well, yeah, but nobody really does that. So it's probably better if you fill the prescription. That's exactly what he said. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So I just told myself, that's it. No more rice, no more sugar, no more any, just stop, go back to keto. So I did. And coming now to this time, I stayed, eating. I probably didn't count my macros good still, but I ate basically cabbage and avocados and tomatoes and a lot of meat. I ate cheese. It was keto, so so to speak. But it took me 2 years to lose 50 pounds. Like I went from 285. I'm only 5'6", to 235 pounds, and that was this year in May 22nd. I was 235 pounds. And I realized it took me a little over 2 years to lose 50 pounds. I thought, well, that's good though, right? But in the back of my head, in that May time frame, it's kind of funny. I was doing a life insurance thing where they have to do a little physical to make sure you can get the all cause death. So that's how I found out how much I weighed, 235, because generally I don't have a scale. Um, and it came back to me about the carnivore. Just all of a sudden, it was like carnivore. Remember carnivore? And I thought, yeah, you know what? Maybe that, because I listened to him talk about the whole gout thing. He had some videos that came out later, Dr. Barry did. And I thought maybe they were wrong about that. Maybe it really isn't the red meat. It could have been something else. Then I heard about oxalates. And I thought, wait a minute. Maybe that's what caused my gout flare up. So on May 28th this year, I started carnivore. I said, let's go forward with it. May 28th, I started. I weighed 235. I had a 5.9 A1C. My triglycerides were like 159. No, sorry, 185, which was a little high. I was surprised they were that high still. But I found out that in 2022, when I went back and looked when I was really fat, they were over 400. So not bad at 185. But anyway, so then I started the carnivore, and I said to myself, I'm going to be strict about this. This is going to be nothing, nothing but meat products, and little cheese. And then it was strange because within a week, I had this incredible energy. I felt fantastic. What's going on? This is really nice. Wow, it's great for a truck driver. I can get up early and I feel good and I'm gone, no problem. I thought, well, this is pretty amazing. And then I started noticing that everything was feeling better. I immediately thought to myself, what am I doing? I'm not going to take this allopurinol anymore. I threw those pills out. Forget those pills. And I said, okay, I'm going to stay on my blood pressure medication, but I'm going to buy a blood pressure, cuff, for myself to make sure as I go along, let's see how this works. Because I also had the my yearly physical was coming up in the beginning of September. So I told myself, okay, that would be about 3 months of carnivore, and I'll be able to find out from the time I had that physical for the life insurance. 3 months later, I'm doing carnivore. I can find out from my other one where I'm at here. Within the first 2 months, um, that medicine was gone. I never felt the gout thing again, so I wasn't worried about that anymore. But I did notice some other things, like my skin used to always be really dry on my face. I get those red blotches and things like that stopped. There was no dandruff anymore, no dry scalp. That was gone. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. It says little things, just little things, but your whole life had put up with it and you just thought it was normal. All these things were going away. And I noticed my skin, the skin on my arms, I have been into dermatologists, and I had things they would call a basal cell carcinoma, like, and they would freeze them off, and they were always popping up, and it's so weird because now that I've been carnivore, my skin on my arms is smooth. There's no more, funny, like precancerous little bumps and all these things. It's really strange. And as time went on, I noticed that where there used to be those things, there was all of a sudden there would be something that looked like a little wound, and there'd be some white around it, and then it would go away. And I don't know, Dave. I've heard people speak about this oxalate dumping, and I was wondering if that's part of that. Is that some like the little white looking crystals, and very strange. But anyway, they're all gone now. Skin's much better. I don't worry about the sun at all. The sun doesn't even bother me. Summertime doesn't bother me. So all these things were happening that I could notice within the first 2 months. Now I have this story to tell. This is really weird. People already think that carnivores are weird, but I played a lot of sport. I had a sports and fitness background. From the time I was young, I played a lot of sports. And I used to play pickup basketball as a guard, type position, just for fun. This is like exercise. So the reason I'm telling that is I probably twisted my ankle like a dozen times in my youth playing sports, or sprained your wrist, you know what I mean? So after 2 months, I'm on carnivore, feeling great, and I have a little dog in my truck. And so I was taking her out of the truck, like I always do, and I'm on the step of the truck, and I put her leash on, and I pick her up, and I step down. Well, when I stepped down, the pavement was separated about that far and about that deep. I didn't know it. And I twisted my ankle into that through the poor dog because I fell flat on the pavement, and it hurt. And I got up and I got the dog, and my gosh, So I'm kind of limping around that day, and I'm thinking this is going to be stiff and sore for at least a week. This is going to suck. It's going to be bad. That same day, Dave, we were walking at a different truck stop in the grass, and I stepped in another hole, same thing, and I fell on the ground again. I thought, my God, I twisted my ankle twice in the same day. And I'm limping around, but Dave, why did it not swell? Why did it only feel a little bit sore to the touch, but didn't even hurt to walk on 2 days later? I was fine. I've never heard that before. People think I'm crazy. I'm trying to tell them, no, this carnivore thing is nuts. People say it causes inflammation to eat plants. It does. I had no inflammation. I twisted my ankle, nothing. It was sore for maybe about a week, like if you touched it, but I wasn't limping. It wasn't swollen. And then I hear people, because I listen to Dr. Chafee too, he talks about sports and how people can recover faster. And I'm like, yeah, they can. This is crazy. But I'm sure everybody thinks we're nuts. But anyway, that really did happen.
I think, there's this thing that, all the anti-carnivore doctors will do, when you say, all my metabolic markers are better. And the doctors will say, yeah, but your cholesterol, right? But
Oh,
I
I didn't
think
get to
I
that
think
part.
it's the I think it's the cholesterol that is the thing that helps us so much, with the
Oh, maybe you're
repair and
right.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's needed. It's part of the construction of the cell itself, like holding it together. I mean, yeah, there's something going on there. Yeah, it's amazing. Those things were going really well, and right after I hit the 3rd month mark, I think it was September 2nd, I went to the doctor, and I was feeling really good, and I was excited to be there and see what's going to happen when we do all these tests and such. And anyway, the first thing they did was put me on the scale, and you remember May 22nd, I was 235. By September 2nd, I was 211. I was like, what? I lost 24 pounds in about 3 months, while previously it took me 2 years to lose 50 pounds trying to eat clean keto. 3 months. I'm like, this is insane. And they checked the blood pressure. My blood pressure I was still taking the medication. It was so low. It read 112 over 61. And she said, wow, that's medicine's really working well. And I told her, I said, yes, doctor, I wanted to ask you if we could cut that dose in half because, I used to ride high and now it's way down here. And she said, well, when your bottom number goes below 60, we'll talk about that. I said, okay. So I let that one slide. But going back to what you were saying, uh, she tested things. She talked to me. She had me go do the blood work. And while we were talking, I noticed that she was smiling because of my excitement. I didn't tell her it was carnivore. I said I was on a low carb diet and it seemed to be working. She goes, yeah, you lost a lot of weight. Um, but it seemed like she was looking at the computer trying to find what she can sell me. And what I mean is like she would look up from it and say, oh, but you haven't done your colonoscopy, right? You want to schedule that? And I was like, well, no, not right now. And she's like fishing, trying to sell me something.
It's almost like she works at McDonald's and is
Right,
thinking of like, how can I upsell French fries?
right. It's really interesting because I was watching her behavior and I thought she's not really listening to me though. I was very excited about the blood pressure and my weight being down, and she's talking about what procedure we can do next. And she didn't want to cut my dose or the medicine. That kind of bothered me. So I thought, oh, I've been listening to a lot of carnivore stuff, and on Dave Mack's channel, a lot of people talk about it. Their doctors seem to want to keep them on meds. I thought, I think that's what they're doing here. So anyway, I went for the blood work, and then she saw the cholesterol numbers. But here was the important part to me. From May to September, I went from a 5.9 on A1C to a 5.6. It was over. No more prediabetes. It's done. That was beautiful. My triglycerides had gone from 185 in 3 months. It was down to 159. That's good. I'm trending in the right direction, right? But what she saw was a 300 score on the LDL, and she lost it. Right away, she said statin, and I knew she was going to do that. I knew it. She said, oh, we're going to have to get you on a statin. I said, ma'am, I really don't want to take a statin. I said, I've heard of this thing called a CIC score, where they just take pictures of your heart and they see if there's any kind of calcium plaque buildup or anything like that. She said, yeah, I could, I'll recommend you to that because if you're not going to take the statin, we need to see what's going on. I said, good. Okay. So anyway, long story short, I went for that and it came back zero. Praise the Lord. Zero. Even when I was a big fat guy, I guess all those years of working out and playing sports kind of helped, right? I wasn't fat for very long, but no offense to anyone. I'm just saying I was very tickled about that. But what was fun was having her call me and say, well, we got your result. And she had this disappointing kind of sound. And it's a zero, and that's good because I know you don't want to do a statin, but we're gonna have to keep watching. I said, yeah, that's fine. I'll come back and do it again 6 months, a year, whatever you want to do. But I don't want to take the drugs. So she was okay with that. But I realized too, listening to a lot of the content, I love your channel for that because I hear all the people speaking, and I learned that you really don't want to argue with your doctor. I'm just trying to just work with her, and maybe she'll open her eyes. Maybe I can be, the one she sees. It's like, oh, this is working. But anyway, I had my cuff for blood pressure checking in the truck. So I started checking it every day and it stayed really low. So I stopped the medication on my own because she didn't help me. But I had to check my blood pressure twice a day, every day, because I was paranoid. I didn't want to see it shoot up or anything. But I'll tell you what, Dave, it didn't. It hasn't. I just took it yesterday. It was 127 over like 63 or something like that. It's totally normal. And I just don't need the medication anymore. It's been since the beginning of September. So I'm pretty thrilled because I'm off of all the meds. It's over.
That that's awesome.
It is.
And
I
it's
love it.
like it's so freeing, right? Because 'Cause you're not
Yeah,
tied to this constantly going to see the doctor, getting tests,
right.
getting filling prescriptions.
Yeah. Yeah, and calling them, "Oh, I need the prescription filled, and gee whiz, I have to find the pharmacy out here on the road, and can you transfer it there?" And, I was doing that, I've been on the blood pressure thing for over 2 years, and allopurinol, but no, I don't take anything, and I feel great. And I still got a lot of weight to lose, because I was pretty fat. You can see from the pictures, I had a big balloon up here and looked like Jabba the Hutt, basically. But, um, I've got faith in it because I've seen the people in your interviews who have been on this for more than a year or even more than 2 years, and they said, even, like, this skin tightens up and, it just takes time, right? Because 'Cause you're looking at me being actual carnivore from May 28th, so not even 5 months yet. So it's pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it takes
that's
time.
awesome.
Yeah, but I was thrilled. The whole journey's been fantastic. But I do listen to your interviews every day. I'm a truck driver, so I can just, I'm going down the road. I can watch video after video after video. So I caught up with all your interviews uh, over time, just consuming, and
Thank you so much.
oh yeah, I watch them all, and I have my favorites. My doctors, everybody watches, right? You got your Chafee, your Barry, your Sean Baker. I like Bella. I like her quite a bit. She likes to throw little recipes out there. I don't have a kitchen to cook in. It's just fun to watch. Oh, you can make bread. Oh, nice.
So, speaking of the kitchen, especially when you're on the road, how do you handle eating?
That's a great question. Okay, so it's too dark in here. I can't show you. This truck is equipped with an upper bunk. Okay, it's a double sleeper, so it's a tall one. And in the upper bunk, I have items. There's nobody else. One of those items is a refrigerator freezer. It has a separate door freezer that freezes things rock hard. So I get to go to the store once a week and stock up on meats and freeze them and, keep my electrolyte drinks and all my things like that. And then I have an inverter which provides power, and I have like plugs that look like a house plug, and I have my electric skillet frying pan. It's quite a large one. So in that frying pan, I make, I'll tell you what I eat every day. For lunch, I have a can of tuna. That's it. Just a small can of tuna, just to get me by. I drink two electrolyte drinks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. But then when the truck is parked at night and it's time to eat, it's a feast. And that's what I love about this diet. You get to eat a lot and smile about it. Yeah, I'm still losing weight. So I'll eat 5 egg omelet cooked in butter, 1 pound of ground beef split into two hamburger patties that I smash myself, and make. And using that grease, because hamburger meat is wonderful for you know, the grease you get from it. So as the hamburger's cooking, it's almost done. This pan is a wide pan and it's got a bunch of grease. So I just put the steak on the other side. See, now the steak's cooking in the hamburger grease. And then sometimes, like tonight, I had a small piece of salmon that. So the hamburger patties get done. I take them out. I'm eating those while the steak's cooking, and then I throw the piece of salmon in there. So everything's cooking in this hamburger grease. It's delicious, to be honest with you. But that's
And
how I do it.
that's a lot. So, and around what time are you eating?
Oh, usually between the schedule is not really solid, so it's like 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. somewhere in there. I start the cooking process. Yeah, and then wash up and. But this diet, a diet, it's a lifestyle. It's wonderful because when you finish, I wash everything up, finish watching my little TV shows, take the dog out for another walk. I walk her like 6 times a day, which helps a lot too. Gets a lot of exercise. But then I sleep. And the thing is, like every morning. I wake up before the sun, and it's usually around 5:30 or to 5:40, but somewhere in there. And it's just automatic. And it's really weird, but I like it. I just wake up, I'm rested.
That's awesome. And this random, totally random question just popped into my head there as you said that. So, are you waking up before the dog most mornings?
Yes.
So that's interesting as
Yes.
well, because it'd usually be the other way around, right? The
Right.
dog would be nudging you like,
It
"Take me
used
out,
to
take
be.
me out."
Yeah, it used to be the other way around because I was, groggy and couldn't wake up and was some fat, sick dude with pills, just total mess, and the poor dog. And then I take the dog for a walk, but I'm too lazy to really walk. So I just kind of stand in one place while she's on a string going around me. It's horrible. Now it's hilarious because, like I said, the heat doesn't bother me. So I started this in the summer, right? So I'm taking the dog and I'm like, oh, we need to go for a walk. And I'm dragging her around, her little tongue's hanging out. She's all hot and tired. And I'm going, what's the problem? It's fine out here. Anyway, she's getting in better shape.
Nice. So, sorry, what kind of dog is she?
Oh, she's a little Boston Terrier.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Boston Terrier. She's over here sleeping behind me. She goes to sleep like, yeah. Well, the thing is, she's really doing well because I still give her her little grain free like dog food stuff down there, but every day she's getting the steak scraps and the things that I'm eating, right? So yeah, she's quite happy on the carnivore diet.
Nice. So she's doing carnivore, she's getting heaps and heaps of exercise, so she's content, right?
Oh, she's a happy dog. That's why she sleeps now. She'll sleep all night, like easily, which is good. She used to wake me up to go out again, but now I give her a long walk at night, so she doesn't do that anymore. There's
Oh,
a lot of
awesome.
benefits to you feeling better, you having more energy. Benefits seems like everything around you. It's kind of an
Mhm.
amazing thing. Okay, I want to take a little left turn. This is something that over my years working overseas, okay, I worked in Iraq and Kuwait during the war, and I learned a lot of things. And I'm not going to go into everything, but the point is, you learn a lot about the world when you go to other countries and kind of look back at America type thing, because you travel, right? So you learn a lot. And I also am a very curious person, so I will research a lot of things to try to find out things. And on your channel, there's many people because you yourself have been teaching us about some of the history of some plans that were made behind our backs that are not good for our health. And so in that discussion, I've seen a lot of people, um, not just on your channel, other channels too, but I'll see guests who are speaking to you and they will say, I don't believe in conspiracies, but I think some greedy people plan to take our money and don't care about our health. And I'm like, well, that's a conspiracy. So it's kind of a pet peeve of mine because it's like the people who really would, who have no empathy, they have no sympathy, and they really would plan to do things that benefit them or their agenda and really don't care what happens to you. Those are the ones who benefit from people being afraid to talk about conspiracy. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that "but" says and I'm guilty of this myself, right? The "but" says everything because basically anything before the "but" is now irrelevant, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and so what I mean is, I've heard of many conspiracies in the world, and my take on it is that there's a definition, okay, in the Oxford English, okay? A conspiracy is when a group of people plan on doing something that is unlawful or harmful to others. That is in the Oxford Dictionary. So conspiracy is real, and that's what it means. Either unlawful or harmful. Well, definitely what we're talking about was done. Now, there are conspiracy theories, and I'm not an advocate of those because they're just theories without facts. You have to have evidence. But there are conspiracies that are out there that have been planned, and there is evidence to prove it now. And one of the best people I love to hear talk about this is Dr. Chafee. Have you ever noticed how he'll go off? But he only goes off on the ones where facts are involved and evidence is clear. Then you're exposing an actual conspiracy. because those people took money to tell a lie to the public, which is causing harm. So I'll
And
get off the
you're right,
soapbox on
there's a
that.
lot you're right, there's a lot of evidence of this stuff happening around health
Mm.
and nutrition, right?
Yeah, they've straight lied to you and they're causing harm. And they knew they were lying. It's not like they didn't know. They were paid to lie. What are you kidding? You know, we don't have to talk about the names. You already know them. You know the story. I saw you do some videos about that very subject. So anyway, that it just rubs me the wrong way when people say I don't believe in conspiracies. And I'm like, well, conspiracies are how they've run the world for the last 1500 years. So pretty much the elite have run the world on conspiracies, which is
Uh,
planning.
I think it's almost like people have been forced into putting that little disclaimer before they say
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
because anyone that thinks that there's something untoward happening at any time is
Mm,
just, labeled a conspiracy theorist. So
theorist, right.
it's almost like, well, I've got to put a disclaimer before I say something, otherwise
Yeah.
everyone's going to think I'm crazy.
That's the thing. That's what's interesting about that. And I like I said, I research things and I read history. Okay, so quickly, the CIA itself created the term conspiracy theorist and fed it to the news media back in the 60s to shut people up about JFK's assassination. This is a fact. You'd have to look it up yourself. But the reason the news agencies use that is because the CIA kept saying, look, we told you what happened. All those other things are just conspiracy theories. And anybody's theorizing in this way are nuts. We told you what happened. And that's pretty much how it started. So then they started using that all the time. Like, let's say you didn't like what happened in 9/11, you didn't like the story. Well, you're just a crackpot conspiracy theorist because the government told you what happened. It's the same thing. They just run this the same way all the time, you know? And so now what I hate seeing is that it worked. It worked. People actually, like you just said, they're scared to be labeled that, you know? And I'm like, it worked. What they tried to do actually worked. It's terrible. But it keeps people from, I don't know what we could do about all this. It's just good to know because the more you learn, you realize that, okay, our health is for us to take care of. We're lucky that there's a large community starting to grow. I'm very happy there's a lot of carnivores because in my world, without the internet and being able to watch your videos and see, the doctors speaking, I have nothing because I've told my brother who's in way worse health than I am, he believes me, but he just can't give up his vegetables. And then I have the Filipino wife who's rice is life, is what they say in the Philippines, right? So, she keeps complaining about her GERD and her joints aching. And I'm like, honey, you got to try this. And she's just, no, I have to eat rice, and you're just by yourself. You're by yourself. Well, you're married to an Asian woman, so you probably know.
Yeah, I mean, culturally, I guess, yeah, in Japan as well, like it's just so difficult to go against the grain, literally and
The
figuratively.
grain. Exactly. Yeah, and she listens to me and she's really happy that I'm losing weight and she's so happy that, I'm getting off the medicine and it's like, "Oh, that's so wonderful for you." And then she'll start complaining about her aches, her pains, her GERD, and I'm like, "Honey, it could be for you too." Or my brother's worse. He's on 3 blood pressure medications. He's on insulin and metformin. He's on, statins. I mean, I'm like, God. And I send him all these videos and I want him to watch these doctors and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I know, but I" and then he literally tells me how much he loves vegetables, which is hard to wrap my brain. It's not like he's saying I love cake. He's talking about vegetables.
Yeah, I also find that a little bit hard to wrap my head around. Like,
What?
I I don't hate vegetables, but I was never someone that would go, well, if there's something I'm not giving up, it's vegetables. I'd never have said that.
That's what he was telling me. You mean I can't eat carrots? I'm like, yeah, you'd have to give up the carrots. Is that a problem? What? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But
But,
for me
just
now,
like
going back though, I forgot to mention this. I forgot completely. Um, when I first started carnivore, I was eating cheese and butter. That was the only dairy, right? But I was watching one of those. I believe it was Dr. Berry again. No, it might have been Dr. Cherry. Anyway, they were discussing. Somebody was asking questions about problems with dairy, and he started talking about something called like casein protein and how some people are sensitive and it causes inflammation and they have sinus problems. And I always have this right blockage in my nostril, you know? And I was eating cheese all the time and I thought, hmm, that's strange. Let me experiment. I was already carnivore. I cut the cheese out. Dave, 2 days later, I could breathe through my nose clearly, like for the first time in I don't know how long. I think there was other inflammation probably with the cheese, and I don't think it would help me if I wanted to lose more weight to keep eating it anyway. But as soon as I could breathe freely through both nostrils, I was excited. So cheese was gone. So later, about a week ago, I started missing cheese. So I took a little square of sharp cheddar because I wanted to taste it. And guess what happened to my nose? One freaking square, and it was plugged up. I said, "What? That's okay. Never mind. It's over."
but that see, this is the good thing about eating this way, because
Mm.
even when you have a deviation, like, it's a good kind of like, you instantly know there's a problem.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's like these constraints that are
Oh,
around you all the
oh, you're
time
making a
that's
good
just
point.
saying, "Don't
That was
fall off the
cheese.
wagon. Don't
Oh,
do
exactly.
this."
That was cheese. With that small experiment, there's no way I would eat carbs. No, God knows what would happen. Besides that, I was a carbaholic. How do you think I got so big? Like if I was eating whatever and I decided to buy that bag of gummy bears, do you think I ate just a couple of gummy bears? No,
Right.
I
Yeah.
devoured the whole bag. That's
Yeah.
just complete carbaholic. So I know to
Yeah.
stay away from that.
I was reading an article yesterday, and it was talking about macronutrient of concern, and it was alluding to saturated fat being the macronutrient of concern. And I'm thinking, are you joking? The
Mm.
macronutrient of concern is carbohydrate. That's it. End of story.
Where did you read that?
It was in the Mirror. It was an article about
Okay. Okay.
how ultra processed foods, saying ultra processed foods are bad and we should give them all up is not necessarily a good thing, because you could potentially be damaging people's health by doing that.
Oh, is that right? Oh, so fascinating. You realize the amount of money that's behind this stuff? I mean, going back to conspiracy, but to have people say ridiculous statements like that one, the study that came out, red meat causes diabetes. Really? There's a lot of money behind that.
Yeah, yeah, and
It's
so
pathetic.
so much money and so much kind of, it's almost like there's an infrastructure behind this stuff that you can
Mhm.
never break down. So it doesn't matter how
Right.
many people wake up to this, that infrastructure is always going to be there.
And they're gonna have a lot of support from the unfortunately the brainwashed masses, and that gets into a whole nother thing. But I'm happy to see the carnivore community growing as it keeps growing because as unfortunately a lot of people are older, but even younger people who had something wrong and they try this and they heal, they're sold. I mean, there's no way to go back. You have people that have serious skin problems with psoriasis and eczema and acne, and they go on the carnivore and it's all gone. And they've been fighting that for years. There's no, you can't go back. Now there's people healing MS. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. I mean, that one hit me hard. I almost cry every time because my mother and my half sister both died of MS, where they were in the wheelchair, then they were bedridden, they just completely dissolved in front of you. And it breaks your heart because now I'm like, now they know what it was. It's inflammation in the brain. It causes, I mean, it's disturbing to know, but anyway, happy to see people healing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so, Paul, after the experience you've had, if you were recommending this to a friend, what advice would you give them to get started?
Oh, okay. So I tried with my brother and my wife. That's not working. And I, I had one friend, he listened and he's already doing better and he's really happy with it. His wife was doubting it, but she's starting to come on and realize that, he's losing weight and feeling really good. So that's working. But anyway, with that said, the other day in the grocery store, I was shopping. There happened to be another truck driver in there because I saw him park outside. So he saw my cart and I saw his cart. And it started a conversation because all he saw in my cart was, 7 pounds of ground beef and all kinds of steaks. And, like he was like, what the heck? And he found some little apple juices on sale and he had all this sugar stuff, and I was just like, man. So he started to mention something and I talked to him about it. And I showed him my picture. I said, this is just a little while ago. And he said, wow. So I started to talk about it and I realized the best thing to do. So this is what I will do from now on is we both had our phones. So I said, here's some YouTube channels. These are the doctors that I think you should listen to because for you to do this, I think education is the best. I think start there. Don't even try to do it yet. Listen to these doctors. And I gave him your channel and said, listen to these people telling their stories and listen to the doctors. And the most important, I told him, I think on that point was I really emphasized it. Read the comments. This community has the most positive comments I've ever seen in any kind of YouTube video, arena. It's amazing. You probably noticed that. The comments are fabulous.
Well, that's the thing that really kept me going when I first started the channel is like when I was talking about, well, this is my experience and
Mhm.
seeing so many people come on and say, yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah, I've been having success like this. And it was like, okay, so there's actually a lot
It's
of people
real.
trying this and having success.
Yeah, it's real. You're not an anomaly. This is real. And then the super positiveness of it, how they cheer each other on. And that's why I told him we really need to listen to those too. And I said, but definitely listen to these doctors, figure it out, listen to the people that have tried it, and then make your decision. Because for me to stand here in 5 minutes and try to explain all this to you, I can't do it. And I wouldn't tell you to start right away without knowing what you're getting into. Because if he listens to all those doctors, he's going to run across the part about how you're going to go through some changes and some hard times within the first 2 weeks and all that stuff, you know, which, I don't mind. We'll talk about that. Um, it was funny because uh, I told you how I cook, and there's always a bunch of rendered fat. And yeah, even after a time when I thought I was completely fat adapted and good, all of a sudden that would happen again. And when I found out it was mostly the rendered fat, I just thought, well, it doesn't always happen. And when it does, I'll just consider it a colon cleanse.
Yeah, I'm with you on the rendered fat, but rendered fat is not my friend.
No, but
Yeah,
hey, there's no
I've
least
worked out the balance.
inexpensive. It's the most inexpensive colon cleanse I've ever had.
That true, true. Yeah.
I don't worry
Um,
about it.
so Paul, is there any way people can reach out to you? Do you have any social media?
Well, not really. Um, if anybody wanted to, you could give them my email. That'd be fine. But
All
yeah,
right. So if it's okay, I'll just include your email in the show notes, and
sure.
people can shoot you an email. Maybe put carnivore as the subject line, so they
Yeah, that way I
yeah,
understand what's going on. Yeah, and that
yeah,
would
cool,
be great. Yeah, and it was
awesome.
wonderful talking with you. You're
Yeah,
you're one of my daily doses. You're my hero out here.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Thank you so much, Paul.
You are very welcome, Dave.